What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 35 of the Weekend Review. My name is Sean, and on this week's show, we're going to talk about one movie, one episode of television, and we'll look forward to this week's new releases. First up is this week's movie, A Simple Favor, and I did something a little bit different. One, I went to a movie on a Thursday night at 7 o'clock in the p.m., which is totally odd. If it was 7 o'clock in the a.m., that would make more sense for me, but instead it was like a 12-hour shift, so it was like dark. I don't really know what that has to do with it, but it was an odd time, a different time for me to go see a movie, and I also went into this movie completely blind. I referenced it last week on, What's New, and I went in with the trust of the director Paul Feig, or Feig, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, and the star power of Anna Kendrick, who I really, really enjoy. She's in all kinds of stuff. Obviously, you know how much I love Pitch Perfect, specifically Pitch Perfect 2. I love Pitch Perfect 2 so much. Apparently, I'm crazy for that because no one else likes that movie, but I love it, and it's the best one of the three. So, like I said, that I went into this movie completely blind, trusting star power and the director who I like, who did my favorite Ghostbusters that I've seen, Ghostbusters from 2016. He also did Bridesmaids, which is a fantastic movie. He did The Heat and Spy, which is fantastic. The Heat's okay, but I prefer Hot Fuzz. That's a debate for a different day that probably isn't super relevant because the Hot Fuzz is 11 years old and the Heat is like 5 years old. Anyway, all those news and notes aside, I totally loved this movie. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I think it helps that I went in completely blind because I had no idea what to expect. And while I thought these shifts in tone from like straight comedy to straight drama were a little bit jarring at first, overall, when I was thinking about it on the way home and the subsequent night and morning, and then when I was on the toilet making that tweet, I really, really enjoyed it. I think everything sets up and pays off really, really nicely. I think it's led by three really strong performances from Henry Golding, Anna Kendrick herself, and the third lady, whose name is Blake Lively. I think the way, kind of going back to the setup payoff thing, I think the way Blake Lively's character is set up is super interesting, and it helped keep me on my toes and kind of off kilter the entire time. Well, most of the time. There was one part that I saw kind of coming, but it's only because it's like a pretty generic like trope in this type of movie. If you see it, I think you'll understand where it's coming from. They do it in all kinds of stuff. They even did it in The Office, which is like how overused this sort of thing is. Maybe overused isn't the word, but just how frequently used that sort of thing is without giving anything away. I was never quite sure who was behind the whole thing or what their motivations were, and I really liked that. I really liked not knowing. Granted, I'm not super into the mystery genre. Like, I'm probably not the smartest guy in the theater, probably not even the smartest guy in the row, but it did enough to keep me engaged and entertained, and I really, really liked it. I don't know, the way I was thinking about it and processing this movie like on the way home and like at night, and I woke up the next morning and I was still thinking about it. Most movies for me, I kind of think about when I get out of the theater. I liked it, I didn't like it, elements of it kind of stick with you, whatever. But this, like, the whole thing was sticking with me. The way her character's set up, Blake Lively's character is set up, and the payoff that has. The other elements of the movie that kind of come into play here and there, the hidden motivations, the side characters, like a lot of it really just stuck with me and like pointing like this happened and then it pays off here and that sort of thing. Like, just it really, really worked for me and it really, really stuck with me. And when I'm thinking about that sort of thing and just in like how the plot unfolds, I really began to like how the tonal shifts work. Like, it starts as like kind of like a generic and weird comedy, which is super odd, but after like a third it shifts into a darker, more dramatic sort of thing with very limited humor, but then kind of almost comes back around and like kind of more evenly distributes both of them towards the end. And it's a super interesting mix that when I see it or say it on paper, say it out loud, it doesn't sound like it would mesh, but it actually meshed super well. And I don't know, this movie was such a surprise, such a wonderful surprise. It probably, it fills out that third slot in the top three of the quarter behind, in no particular order, but BlacKkKlansman and Eighth Grade. I don't know which one I would put where, but that's like a solid 3 movies, and they kind of, starting to fill out that top 10 list, that's coming up here soon, the end of the third quarter. This is one of the best surprise movies I've seen in a very long time. I think I don't want to like repeat myself too much, but I don't think I can overstate how much it probably helped that I saw it blind. Like, I didn't have any preconceived notions. I didn't really know what it was. I mean, even the dramatic and comedic aspects I didn't really understand. I had such a good time with this particular movie, and I would really, really recommend you go check it out. Definitely one of the best of the quarter, and probably in the top 10 of the year, but you'll have to come back in a couple weeks to find out exactly where that sits. So stay tuned for that. Switching over to the smaller screen, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is continuing their 13th season, so I'm going to continue to review those particular episodes. And this week's episode was probably an improvement over the first one. It probably helps that there is that familiarity with the quote-unquote like the normal five now that, spoiler alert, Dennis is back and he's back full-time. So that probably, probably helps it feel like more normal, more like regular, I guess. I think this episode starts with a really good premise. It's Sweet Dee coming up with a team building escape room exercise that may or may not have some of her own personal hidden motivations, which I found very, very interesting. This is a consistently funny episode, though it probably needed a little bit more Dee. She gets pushed to the side like very, very quickly in this particular episode, and there were two scenes in particular that I thought between the guys that I thought could have been cut down. This episode does have good, it has the good classic team combinations. It has Mac and Dennis, and then it has Charlie and Frank. And Mac and Dennis are in this episode a lot, and their initial scene where they're having a conversation in their living room is a little bit too long, and they could have cut that down just a smidge. And then there's a scene later in the episode where the four guys are at the table and they're having a conversation. That could have been probably cut down a little bit. And it's not because the scenes are bad necessarily. It's just I want more of Dee in this particular episode, or more of Charlie and Frank in their kind of scenario. Divide it up a little bit more, because Mac and Dennis have a lot of screen time on this, and not all of it feels super necessary. Speaking of Dennis, Dee gets locked in Dennis's room, and that is a part that, while I thought it was funny, some of the hidden implications of it were a little uncomfortable in a way that weren't fun. I understand that this is a show that's designed for mature audiences, and it tackles mature themes and that sort of thing. I understand that. But sometimes the stuff they tackle isn't fun in any sort of way. It's just something that feels like it's there to kind of push that R rating sort of thing. And this was one of those times where I thought it went a half step or a step too far. I feel like, and maybe it's just me speaking, I feel like I'm supposed to kind of root for these characters in a weird twisted way. But this one, kind of like when it was the episode of Being Frank, this one didn't make me want to root for them. It made me hate them a little bit more, and more so than it's I really, you shouldn't be doing this sort of thing, and you shouldn't be getting away with it. I don't know how much that makes sense, but I guess the overall point, or the overall critique of it, is half step too far into an uncomfortable area that was while I thought it was kind of funny, was just still a little unnerving, and those implications were just a little too much. Though the Dennis room sort of thing, Dee does outsmart Dennis, which is pretty great, and his ego and his frustration is quite funny. And I think this episode ends on a very, very sweet note, a surprisingly sweet note, and in a good way. I kept waiting for it to take a turn, because that's typically what happens with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, is it goes in a direction and you think it's kind of going to be fine, and then it makes one last little twist. This one ended on a really good, positive, sweet note, and I thought it was a really, really great ending, a genuinely great ending. This is an episode that's pretty classic, sunny fun. It's a situation where a sixth person is kind of pulled into their craziness, and they kind of have to, the outside person has to kind of work around them. There are great jokes, great one-liners. I do think it veers a little bit too dark, but it has a sweet ending overall. And I mean, I'm not walking away going oh, this is bad television. It's a show that I enjoy, and it was an episode of a show that I enjoy. So I don't know, watch it, I guess. And I did take a peek at what the next episode is going to be, and I'm very excited for that. So be sure to check back next week for more thoughts on the 13th season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Finally, we have this week's new releases. On Blu-ray, There Was Nothing. 2 movies that I'm interested in hitting theaters this week: Assassination Nation, which I saw a trailer for and looks utterly berserk and insane, and Colette, which is a movie about a writer in the, I want to say, late 1800s. That looked pretty interesting. They showed a trailer for it at A Simple Favor, and I've seen a couple of trailers in the past as well. A couple of games out this week. The big one that I want to point out is Transference, which is a game that Elijah Wood is working on with Ubisoft and looks super interesting. It's playable in PlayStation 4 VR, but it's also playable in regular format as well on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm super glad it's not a PlayStation or a VR exclusive, because that would have kind of sucked because I don't have a VR unit. The other game that I wanted to point out that's a little bit bigger is the Scribblenauts Mega Pack, and this is a compilation game on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 that bundle together Scribblenauts and Scribblenauts Unlimited, a DC Universe story, I think it's the subtitle on it, and puts them into one package for $40. So Scribblenauts has had a lot of stuff coming out on the Xbox One. They have this and their like party game compilation that came out earlier this year. So I'd like to try that out. I don't think I'm going to get to it anytime soon, but I always did want to play those Scribblenaut games because I thought they were interesting, and now having them on a console that I actually own is super, super great. I feel like that would be a good game for the Switch, though. 2 smaller games that stuck out to me from an artistic style or art direction standpoint: My Brother Rabbit and The Gardens Between hit this week as well. They both look really, really fascinating from a visual standpoint, and they are both puzzle games, so I don't know if they're going to work for me because I'm, again, not super smart, but they caught my eye visually, and maybe if they're on sale down the road, maybe I'll pick them up and check them out. But I still need to play more Spider-Man, so maybe I shouldn't go buying new games. I probably will. And then last but certainly not least, here on the channel, just the football going up on Thursday. It's going to be Green Bay in Digital Washington, Digital Green Bay in Digital Washington, D.C., not state, Washington, D.C., for a game on Thursday night. So check that out. That'll be up Thursday night. I've said that 3 times. That's okay. That's what they say. They say the key to making people remember is to say it in 3s. Thursday night, Thursday night, Thursday night. Football, football, football. Sports. Digital sports. Sports, digital sports. Sports, digital sports. There you go. Now you know everything you need to know. That'll be up sometime on Thursday. Thursday. This Thursday. Kids' seats are still just $5, but they're actually free because it's digital on the internet. So you can watch it for free. Sean Madden returns. So check that out. It's going to be good. Maybe. I haven't recorded it yet, so I can't actually tell you if it's going to be good or not. It's going to be good. I got to say it with confidence. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. 3 times. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Week in Review. Post every Tuesday right here on this very YouTube channel. As always, leave a comment below and let me know what hype trains you're on, and then hit that subscribe button so you know when I post new videos. Again, Week in Review every Tuesday. Football on Thursdays. Other videos? Who knows? But always check back for more Week in Review every Tuesday right here. We'll see you next week.